What's up, everybody? Well, I got another gameplay video for you guys today, and today we're going to do Hellblade Senua's Sacrifice, and we're going to do it on the secondary computer here. It's got 5800X 3D and RTX 3090 founders, ASRock X570 Tai Chi for a motherboard, 32 gigs of 3600 CL14 RAM, dual rank as well, cool by 360mm EK Basic all-in-one, and then it's powered by an RM 1000 watt power supply that I've had since like probably 2013 or 14. Probably should upgrade that thing soon before it dies, but anyway, why don't we go ahead and now hop into the game, look at the settings just a little bit, and then we'll get into the gameplay. Well, now let's do my secondary computer here, which is ultra wide. And let's start off on low, even though you would never run a computer like this at low settings. It just feels right. That's what we did on the Steam Deck and on the laptop, so why the hell not? Anyway, let's go find out how it does. Now let's go on with let's start with some low graphics settings here on the secondary computer, and wow, we sure get a lot of FPS. But it sure does have like a random tick of stutter here and there, like all the time. It's not just walking through one set area. But I mean, I guess what do I expect when I have it up so high, or getting such high FPS in a game that was probably never designed to have such high FPS? Of course it's gonna stutter a little bit, but still relatively smooth most of the time. Just a little stutter there and again. No big deal though. It'll probably stop doing that like as I turn up the settings, I'm willing to bet. There we go. I was wondering when that was going to pop in, but with low view distance, I guess that definitely makes a difference. You have to get right up on it to see that. Anyway, let's move on. Well, now let's do ourselves some medium here. But of course, we have to go through the settings first before we get into the game. Otherwise, you won't even know what settings I'm on unless I just say medium, and then you won't know what the settings are. So, now that we're at the bottom, now it's time to get into the game. Well, let's get in a little bit of some medium gameplay here now. Do our same little walk on the beach. Alright, we pretty much made it to our little turnaround spot, so with that, let's move on to some high now. Here's some high settings now. Alright, let's get back into the game, see how high does. Well, here we go. It's high graphics settings now. Let's just walk around, see how it does. And since it's high graphics settings, why don't we also get a little higher and take ourselves a little hit? Got pretty much one more bowl here of some platinum cookies, and then I think it's time for some orangutan. And I dare not have any of the critical glue number 3 until later at night. At 27% THC, that's some good put your ass to sleep weed right there. Interesting. Alright, and the orangutan is 20.8 THC, and the platinum is 18.63. So the platinum is actually the weakest out of them all. Whatever, they all taste good. And now, moving on. Now we are going to do very high. But of course, we have to go through the settings first. And we're going to do DLSS and ray tracing towards the end, of course. But now, time for us to go see how very high does. Well, now we've got ourselves some very high, and we are still getting a good amount of FPS for sure at 133. So, if you didn't want ray tracing on, hell, you don't even need DLSS if you don't want ray tracing in this game. There's plenty of FPS. But I have a sneaking suspicion as soon as you put ray tracing on, it might get close to dropping under 60 while recording anyway. That ray tracing is always kind of hard, so you gotta choose whether or not you actually want to turn it on or not. In some games it doesn't really make that big of a difference. This game, it makes an alright difference. It's not like night and day, but definitely helps a little. So why not turn it on if you've got a GPU that can handle it? And if it can't quite handle it with no DLSS, turn on a little DLSS. I've never really had too much trouble with that. Sure, it's had in the past some like ghosting and whatnot problems, but other than that, no real big issues with it. Alright though, let's go ahead and move on to ray tracing. Well, now we're going to start off ray tracing here in the settings, and we're going to start off on low. There's 3 different levels, low, medium, and high. So let's just start off on low and work our way up. And then after that, it's DLSS time. But alright, back into the game. Well, now, let's do ourselves a little ray tracing. We're going to start with low here. Still getting more than enough FPS to be enjoyable, obviously. But, again, this is also only low ray tracing. So, we'll have to see what it gets once we bump it up to medium and high. If it's still playable or not without the DLSS. But yeah, right now you could effortlessly play without DLSS. This ain't a first-person shooter. I don't need hundreds of FPS. But it's when it tries to drop close to 60 or under 60, that's when I like me some DLSS. And if that can't do it either, then I just tone down some settings like I used to have to do on Cyberpunk on this card before I got my 4090. And even that can't quite max that game out. That game is just way ahead of its time. Maybe the, what do you call it, 590 would be able to. Or I should say 5090. But alright. Besides the giant stutter when we get to the stupid forest here, it's doing pretty fucking good. So now, why don't we go ahead and move on? Well, now it's time for us to bump up our ray tracing to medium. So let's go through the settings real quick here. As you can see, ray tracing is on medium right there. And now, time to get back into the game. This is some medium ray tracing now. So why don't we go ahead and walk around our beach. Still plenty of FPS. And I'm sure Shadowplay takes up a couple. Might not be as much as my OBS, but I'm sure it takes up a little itty bitty bit of FPS.
But we're still doing some camera gameplay at the end with my settings, so that should be unhindered. Well, by anything other than my settings, that is. But I'm not going to pick horrible settings. Alright, this seems like a good spot, because it's the spot we normally stop, so time to move on to the next ray tracing. Okay, last up on ray tracing anyway, we got some high ray tracing. So we're leaving the rest of the game maxed out, and now ray tracing is maxed out, so the game is maxed out now. So now, let's go back into the game and see how it handles it. Well, here is ray tracing on high. Still above 60. We're getting closer to not being, but we're still over 60 so far. But yeah, still way over 60, so I think this is more playable. Most people would say you don't need DLSS. I think I'll turn it back on, because it'd be nice to get around 100 FPS, you know? Well, so far so good. Well, let's go turn around here, and why don't we move on to DLSS? Well, here we go. Now we're going to do DLSS, and we're going to start on quality. And there we are, DLSS and quality. Everything else exactly the same. Well, besides we turned ray tracing off. And now, back into the game. Well, let's get a little DLSS quality gameplay in. We got quite a bit of stutter upon starting, but that's just because when Shadowplay starts, sometimes it makes a lot of lag. Now let's just walk down our beach, see what kind of FPS we'll get. So far, lots more than when we didn't have DLSS on, that's for sure. Yeah, DLSS is definitely some win. Cause I know there's some, like almost 200, if not 200 hertz frickin' ultra wide panels by now. So this would be perfect for that. Anyway though, why don't we go see what some of the other DLSSs hold? Well, now DLSS balanced. Other than that though, everything is the same. I'll probably turn ray tracing back on during my settings, we'll see. But now, it's time for us to go back into the game and see how DLSS balanced fares. Now we're on DLSS balanced, and we definitely got more of a FPS bump than we did before. It's definitely working its magic. Yeah, so far so good on that one too. Lots of FPS, doesn't really look that much worse. How do you even tell that much of a difference with DLSS? It's a lot harder. At least until you get down to the performance when you're on lower resolutions, but all my NVIDIA cards have always had pretty high resolutions, so it's never really been a problem for me. 1440p was the lowest I ever went with a high-end NVIDIA card, and it was high refresh rate, 165 Hz. It's the one I use on my laptop now, in fact. Anyway, moving along. Well, now for some DLSS performance. So let's go hop on in after we get to the bottom here. As you can see, it's on performance. Everything else is the same. So now it is time to hop back in. Now, last up here for DLSS anyway, we have DLSS performance. And it's definitely making a difference. We were not getting almost 200 FPS before. However, you can definitely tell a little bit of some shenanigans going on. But a lot kind of looks more like balanced, or in between balanced and quality FSR. That's where I would say performance DLSS lies, because it still isn't horrid. Even the aliasing around her fur isn't that bad compared to how it was on FSR. Like, you can notice it, but not that bad. Same thing with her hair. So, bravo. Go DLSS. So yeah, if you want to crank the game all the way to the max and have like 200 FPS, well, there you go. Apparently it is pretty much doable as long as you have a setup like this. Hey, look at that, we hit 203 for a second there. Well, alright. Now, let's go move on to my settings. Well, now, let's look at my settings, which basically, I figure we might as well just have the game maxed out and then put DLSS on quality. If you can't really tell the difference anyway, why in the heck not? So, there we go. Now let's go hop into the game and see what my settings get us. Well, now, here we go with my settings. Get a little camera gameplay here. Screen recorded gameplay, then camera. As we can all tell, this is surely not camera gameplay. But yeah, we'll get that camera gameplay right after this. We'll just walk to the other end of the beach real quick first. Yeah, it's doing real good though. We're staying right at about 100 and some FPS the whole time. We dropped a little here and there under 100, but for the most part, we're over 100, which is pretty badass. Well, now it's time to move on.
Well, alright guys, let's get ourselves some camera gameplay here on the secondary computer. Same settings as we had for the camera. They're just my settings, so no need to look at them again. And now we'll just see what kind of FPS we get when we're not recording or doing nothing. Alright. Let's just keep walking around here on our beach of benchmark. Bunch of seaweed stuck into this motherfucker. At first it almost looked like people's hair. Like done up like hers. And I was like, oh shit, did they literally scalp people and put them on a fucking rope? But no. I'm pretty sure it's just fucking seaweed. Game looks really freaking nice though. When you turn everything up. Even if you have to use DLSS. Like old Viking size boat. Still a little stutter every now and again, but for the most part, pretty damn smooth. Much better than most DirectX 12 games do. Alright. Let's just go take one more little lap here and go back over to where I usually stop, and I think that'll be good enough for camera after that. Very, very curious as to what's all up in that structure up there. Guess I'll find out, hopefully, if I play. Though, maybe that's all just for show and we don't go there ever, even though there's a big old bridge leading to it. That would be kind of annoying, but games have done that to me in the past. Where I think, oh, that's where I go. And it's like, no, it's not. Alright. And I think that's plenty of camera footage, so now, why don't we go wrap this video up? Well, alright guys, that is a wrap for Hellblade Senua's Sacrifice on the secondary computer here, and obviously it handled it just fine. Although to get really good FPS with ray tracing on, I still had to use some DLSS, but I don't mind using DLSS. It's pretty fun. You can't say you're running 3440 by 1440 anymore, but who cares? As long as the game looks good and gets you the FPS you want, run the settings the way you want. Those are just the settings I chose as my settings, because I figured that gave me a good boost. I could max everything out, even ray tracing, and still stay around 100 FPS most of the time. So that's good enough for me in a game like that anyway. But anyway, it's time for me to go move on to the main computer now before I have to start doing voiceovers for all of these guys. Ooh, that's gonna take me a while, but still fun. So anyway, that's all I got for you guys here. Hope you enjoyed, and until the next video, peace out, guys.